Hi everyone, Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets here on another episode of Capping the Card as I'm going to take you through all 14 races on Saturday's Pennsylvania Derby Day card with my top pick and my top value play. Now, before we get to all 14 races, just a quick reminder to press that like button and subscribe to the NYRA Bets YouTube channel so that you can get all of our race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, and so much more. We got a lot covered here at NYRA Bets, whether you're playing Parx, whether you're playing Aqueduct, whether you're playing Churchill Downs, Santa Anita eventually, Gulfstream Park, we got you covered coast to coast and across the world. A lot of great stuff coming up, getting you ready for the Breeders' Cup just here in about 6 weeks. So going to be a lot of great stuff going on with horse racing. Want to make sure to subscribe. All right. Well, like I said, we're going to go through all 14 races here on Capping the Card. Let's set the timer, see if I can get this done in under an hour. But it's going to be a great day of racing. If you haven't watched it already, we have an early reaction. Myself and my NYRA Bets colleague, Kaylee Shapiro, we took a first look at that Cotillion and Pennsylvania Derby. Then I was joined by Jessica Paquette. We previewed the Cotillion together, the two of us. That's a really good video. Want to make sure to check out both of those if you haven't already. All right. Well, listen, let's dive into the first of 14 races. And we're going to kick things off with a $100,000 maiden special weight for 2-year-olds going 7 furlongs on the dirt. And I'm going to hit you up with some big prices to get you started because I'll be honest, a little bit later in the card, it gets a little on the chalky side. So I'm just warning you about that right now. There's going to be some chalky races in terms of top picks. I'm always going to try to find you a little bit of value, though, to pair with that, with those value play selections. And in this one, starting off, my top selection is number 2, Sherman Fury. This horse is 12-1, big price on the morning line. I have a feeling this horse will probably get bet down quite a bit. Son of Gun Runner out of the dam by Curlin. Blinkers are going on for trainer Jose D'Angelo. Rad Ortiz Jr. is up on the mount. I don't think there's any chance you get 12-1. If you get half that price, I actually think it's still a good bet. At 6-1, this is a horse that's exiting the Chancer McPatrick maiden race. Now, a lot was made out of that race because some of the horses did not run back particularly well. So you had a couple of horses like T-Craft and Noble Confessor and Fiddling Felix all run back slower. But then you had a horse like Tiz-Tastic come back and go onto the turf and won an allowance race on the turf, and then actually just won the juvenile mile at Kentucky Downs on the turf as well. So good horse. And then you had another horse, American Promise, for Dwayne Lucas, who actually moved forward 11 Beyer speed figure points coming out of that race. So a little bit of a mixed bag there, but this is one now facing a little bit easier competition, and I just think really fits in this spot. You get Irad up on the big day here for Jose D'Angelo. Blinkers on. Like I said, I think there's a lot to like with this one. Part of the reason is I'm not necessarily sold on the number 11 and the number 10, who are your top 2 choices. One's for Butch Reed, the other's for Tony Wilson. Both good horses. Both have had 2 bites at the apple. Okay, very good. The number 10 horse regressed pretty significantly last time out. And the number 11, nice horse, but also 2, in the money finishes. That said, those 2 in the money finishes lost by a combined 13 1/4 lengths. So hardly overwhelming. Now, from a value play standpoint, I actually really like the number 13 Possum at 8-1 for Guadalupe Prediaso, I should say. I'm sorry. Blinkers are going on this one as well. The Dam Roaming has a full sibling, Shefflin. Now, Shefflin is actually a really nice horse that runs down at Turfway Park for Bill Morey. And this is one that is, stakes placed sprinter on the synthetic. Now, I think that is the question, is whether or not this is a horse that ultimately wants the turf or the synthetic. Has some decent works on the dirt. 2 starts haven't really shown much. Now we're putting the blinkers on. Dexter Haddock's up. And you'd expect this horse is going to show much better early speed from a further outside post. There's talent there. Whether you're on the right surface or not, I think is a legitimate question. But at 8-1, I'll put a little bit on this horse as well. I do think the number 14, Happily Delusional, is also a little bit of interesting for Lou Linder. This horse has some nice works, most recently at 47-4 for furlong work at Parx just earlier this week. So that's another one to consider. But those are kind of some prices to really kick things off with the very first race. Let's go to race number 2 on the card, which is another $100,000 maiden special weight race going 7 furlongs on the dirt for your 2-year-old fillies. And this one's hard to get around the morning line favorite, which is the number 1 B Bluff at 5-2 for trainer Lindsay Schultz. Paco Lopez up on the mount. I do worry a little bit about the inside post position when you're coming out of that 7 furlong shoot. That said, this horse does have very exceptional early speed. Paco, always an aggressive rider, knows how to get horses out of the gate well. And there's not much that really scares me in this race. I think if you look at a number, maybe the number 5 aside for John Service with Irad up, that's another one who's also had 2 straight victories and, has lost to 2 next out winners the next 2 times out. So there's definitely something there for that horse as well, coming out of a race at Parx locally. But the other horse that I will talk about a little bit is my value play here. And I think this one is interesting because this one is the half sibling to Tuskegee Airman. Now, Tuskegee Airman, if you remember, ran in the Remsen, actually ran 3rd behind W&L and Arctic Arrogance. And this is from a couple of years ago. One of the things I remember about Tuskegee Airman is he broke his maiden in debut on the undercard of the Pennsylvania Derby back in 2022. Now the half sibling, sired by Nyquist for trainer John Service, jockeyed by John Velasquez, is going to be trying to break his maiden in debut on the undercard of the Pennsylvania Derby. So a little bit of symmetry there, which I'm intrigued by. This one has a couple of nice works leading up to this race. I like some of the gate works that this one has shown, some nice speed out of the gate. I always love John Velasquez on 2-year-old horses. He's so good at getting them to calm down. Cash is King is the ownership group. This is important to note. Cash is King likes getting winners on the undercard of Pennsylvania Derby Day. Okay. They're going to have this horse ready to go. So I really like Mischievous Twins in this spot at 6-1. I think that's a great value play. If B Bluff starts getting bet below 2-1, then I think this is where I'm going to be going with my top pick or my win bet in this particular case. So really like the number 6 Mischievous Twins here. I think those 3 horses I mentioned, Mischievous Twins, 5 aside, and B Bluff. I mean, it's really hard to get past those 3, in my opinion. I'd go with the best value, which is where your 6 is in terms of a betting interest. Let's kick off the stakes races. In the 3rd race, let's go to the Alphabet Soup Handicap, and going to try to find a little bit of a price here. And it's not a huge price by any stretch, but this is an interesting race because there's not a lot of turf experience in this field, actually. And there's still a lot of unsettled situations going on. So like the number 5 horse Capo has no rider yet. So we still don't know who's riding that horse. So there's stuff going on like that. I think you're going to look at a horse like Crisper, the number 7 taking money. Certainly the number 10 Twilight Dancer, going to take a little bit of interest, although that horse is cross-entered at Presque Isle and has never run on the turf, only on the synthetic. And then number 11 is your morning line favorite, Fierce and Strong. A very nice horse and certainly very capable, a 5-time winner on the turf, so very comfortable with the surface, which really does make the horse stand out quite a bit. Ultimately, though, I went to the best price out of the top 3 choices, which is Retweet, number 12 horse, at 9-2 for Ruperto Perez. Dexter Haddock aboard. This one's coming off a defeat last time out to Crisper. But that said, that was over a yielding turf course at Penn National. This one won over a firm course the race before that. And, is a lightly raced horse on the turf. Hasn't really had a lot of experiences on the turf, but 6 career starts, 2 wins, 3 seconds. In other words, this horse likes to run on the turf, has always turned in pretty honest efforts. I think this one's worth a shot at a little bit of a price. Has some versatile running style, can close from well off the pace. You look at that race 4 back at Parx, which was a state bred allowance race. This horse came from 10 lengths back at one point to win that race going away. You even look last time this horse won at Penn National was sitting pretty much so, 5-6 lengths back early and then made kind of a middle move into a little bit more of a tracking position and then won. Last time out, Dexter had this horse much closer to the lead. So this horse can do a couple of different things depending on how the pace plays out. And I think obviously this was a horse that's going to need to flash some significant speed. The other thing I would mention is don't get too overwhelmed by the post positions just because the number 3 is a main track only entry, the number 6 is a main track only entry, the number 9 is a main track only entry. So already the number 12 is going to be moving in a few spots, and that's just assuming that everybody else stays in the race. And I think there might be some additional scratches as well. So I think you don't have to worry about some of those outside post positions being maybe quite as far outside as they might look on the past performances. Now, in terms of value in this race, the number 8 Market Maven at 8-1 for Jacinto Solis. This one has Wilfred Vasquez up on the mount. And this horse doesn't have much turf form, admittedly. One turf race, which was the With Anticipation at Penn National, not the With Anticipation at Saratoga. And that was a race where if you look at it from a speed figure standpoint, you go, well, it was a 70 buyer speed figure, 4th place finish behind Fierce and Strong and Crisper. You might just kind of shrug your shoulders a little bit at that. But here's the thing. That was also the first race back after a 6-month or 5-month layoff, basically, for Market Maven. Then goes onto the dirt next time out. Really doesn't like that dirt at Monmouth. Comes to Parx in July, runs 2 improving races, including last time out on the dirt in the Stormcat against Irish Cork, who is, oh, by the way, a main track only entry, as well as Margin of Error. So I think this one is moving in the right direction. And I wonder now if the speed figures that you see on the dirt could more appropriately translate onto the turf, as opposed to trying the turf coming off the bench when you expect that horse may not turn in the best effort. So I'm interested in this one at 8-1, probably a little bit more of an underneath play, admittedly, but I just think is a little bit of an interesting horse to use in this spot. Well, listen, this is going to start a stretch when we go to race 4, where there's a lot of pretty strong favorites on the card to it's hard to get past some of these horses. Now, I think the Whistle Pig is an interesting race, 6 furlongs on the dirt. And while I have certainly the number 5, Beyond Expectations, as my top selection, I do think this is a more hotly contested race than just, it's not going to be a walkover. I'm interested in the number 7, the Boys Warrior, the number 6, Roxton, who are the next 2 choices on the morning line. The problem is the Boys Warrior is only ever run on synthetic. Now, it did train earlier this week, or late last week, I should say, on the dirt at Parx. I know this horse is cross-entered, but the fact this horse is down training at Parx would indicate this horse is running in this race, not up at Presque Isle. Why would this horse be a little concerning for me? Doesn't have great early speed. He's going to be sitting a little bit more pit pack, might get shuffled a little bit wide. It's only a 7-horse field, admittedly, but a lot of times these 2-year-old races, man, I like going with the speed of the speed, and that's exactly what Beyond Expectations is. For trainer Butch Reed, this one is still a maiden, hasn't actually won yet, but just got hooked last time out by the horse that was sitting in second, getting up there at the last couple of strides, and now is coming back, going a little bit longer, stretching out from 5.5 to 6. But this horse has outstanding early speed. I think this horse is your absolute most likely winner. It's admittedly a short price of 2-1. It's just hard for me to really trust the 6 and 7 in this race because they just have not flashed the sort of speed you would hope to see out of that race. And quite frankly, Roxton, granted won a maiden debut race against State Bred Company at Parx, but then stepped up, went a mile. In the sapling, admittedly, much, much tougher competition, but was 17 lengths beaten and only recorded a 38 buyer speed figure as opposed to Beyond Expectations, who got a 53 in debut. Now, if I'm going to go to an alternative, a horse that is also still a maiden is Awesome Warrior. The number 1 horse, 6-1 for Scott Lake. This horse also, it showed good speed for the level this horse was at. Admittedly, it was a 4-horse race at Penn National. The horse is training nicely coming into this race. Scott Lake, I should say, is okay with maiden second starters, not great. But again, if you're looking to maybe pair a horse underneath, I think, this is one with with Angel Rodriguez aboard, there's going to be some need to break well out of the starting gate from that inside post position. I think if this horse gets out there and gets prominent, maybe this horse gets a little bit more brave, and you can see a horse at a little bit of a price be able to pair. But it's really hard to get past beyond expectations as the top choice. And I'll be honest, even if you're playing vertically, it's really hard to get past like a horse like the number 7, the Boys Warrior, as a second choice. I think Awesome Warrior is more of a deeper underneath play, maybe could surprise in the second start and move forward. And certainly it was a little bit competitive there in that debut at Penn National. But like I said, short field to really make too much out of that. Well, let's move to race number 5 on the card, which is the Miss Blue Tie-Dye Stakes, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And again, this is one where there's a pretty strong favorite, Anna Bam, 6-5. Again, Angel Rodriguez up on the mount. This one won impressively in debut for trainer Todd Beadle, and just was the clear speed and pulled away and won by 6 3/4 lengths, and was never really challenged that seriously. I will say the number 3, Angel of Hope, at 9-2, could try to press this horse early. And that's always a concern when you see horses stretching out a little bit, facing another horse that might be just as good, to really kind of go at each other. The concern is that Angel of Hope faded pretty significantly in that debut effort. Now, again, second time out, you're expecting maybe a little bit better foundation here. But I just think Anna Bam has been working out so well for Todd Beadle. 48-2, 4 furlong work at Penn National prior to this race. So coming down to Ben Salem for the race there, I think is a really tough horse to get around in this spot. Some of the first-time starters don't really stand out to me. Some of these other horses are going to have to do a lot to improve to get close to this one. And if there's one horse that I'm a little interested in at a price, it is the Jamie Ness horse, number 5, Love You Mom. 6-1 in the morning line. Listen, Jamie Ness, second starts, always strong, getting the blinkers on as well. You don't necessarily Jamie Ness with a lot of homebred, or, I shouldn't say homebred, but you don't see him with a lot of, maiden special weight type horses. He's a guy who operates on the claim, optional claim, allowance circuit a lot of times. We're seeing him later in the card with a horse like Repo Rocks. But this one's getting the blinkers on, showed some initial speed in that debut race where Angel of Hope finished second. This one faded back badly. But again, I think second time, you're getting a little bit more foundation, and Jamie's bringing this horse back quickly, which I should say is true of obviously also the 3, Angel of Hope. Those 2 horses ran on September 9th. So they're coming back on less than 2 weeks rest. And that's usually a plus move for Ness when he runs horses back pretty quickly. Anybody who follows Parx knows Jamie Ness is always going to be a strong trainer in terms of, turning out a lot of winners in these spots. So 6-1, I think you're getting at least an honest price on that horse. If you like him underneath, that's great. Maybe this horse can jump up and surprise at a little bit of a price. But again, Anna Bam, hard to get around in this spot. Well, let's go to the Plum Pretty, which is, again, another race where it's hard to get past the overwhelming morning line favorite, which is the number 6, Morning Matcha. And as much as I wanted to beat this horse, which is 2-5 on the morning line, partially because this horse's speed figures are not that overwhelming necessarily. I think Morning Macho was maybe better last year than she was this year. I say that, and while also acknowledging she just beat an off-turf stakes race field by 11 3/4 lengths. She's doing just fine. Before that, she was going against Open Company in the Delaware Handicap, going 1 mile and 3/16, as well as in the Roses Grade 2, going against horses like A Seed and Just Catherine and Hot Fudge. Jose Lezcano's up on the mount. Jose Lezcano, oh, by the way, is winning 46% of his starts at Parx this year. Not bad. Butch Reed, always a dangerous trainer. And the other thing is, when you isolate Morning Matcha's races against state-bred company, it's really hard to get around that form. I mean, she's just, quite frankly, better than everyone else when she's running against state-bred company on the dirt. It's hard to get around her in these spots. If anybody's going to do it, it's actually her stablemate, Confirmed Star, who is 5-1 with Michael Sanchez aboard for Butch. And this one's coming off a win against Allowance Company, going 6.5 furlongs. And that might not have been the most impressive race in the world. And from a buyer speed figure point, it certainly wasn't. The race two back, though, was a little bit more competitive, where she actually finished second to a horse, Summer's Gift, who went on to win next time out. And that horse is a pretty nice runner as well, who's 3 for 4 winning in her career and has won every single dirt race that she's been on. Undisi, who is the second place horse that day, came back to win next time out as well, or third place horse, I should say, came back to win next time out. And obviously, like I said, Confirmed Star won the next time out, admittedly with a lower buyer speed figure. So whether or not this horse can replicate that 82 buyer, I think is a legitimate question. But when you go through the field, there's not much else here that really challenges her. Foxy Jr. is probably the biggest threat in that regard. But this is a horse that has largely been doing its work and getting wins against $25,000 optional claiming company at Penn National. And no disrespect to my home track of Penn National, but that's just not the same level of competition she's going to be facing when she goes up against the likes of Morning Matcha. Now, if there is one concern with Morning Matcha, is that she's a deep closer. And closing on the Parx track can sometimes be a little bit tricky, and you wonder, does a horse kind of get out there on the front end? Maybe a horse like Molly Won a Cracker, who's got really good early speed, gets out there. Maybe, as I said, Confirmed Star is a horse that's shown some speed at other times. And probably your horse like Nature's Candy at 8-1 for Hugo Padilla. That's one with Abner Adorno aboard that should kind of flash a lot of early speed. Problem is, she also lost to Morning Matcha by 13 and 11 and 3/4 lengths last time out. So hard to really see her getting the job done here. So again, hard to get around the favorite in this particular spot. Well, let's go to race 7 on the card. And this is another one I really wanted to try to find a bigger price in this race, but it was hard. And for a while, I was considering looking at a horse like Berzina for Jamie Ness, the number 2 horse. That horse is cross-centered at Laurel. So we'll see if that horse runs Friday at Laurel. We'll know where Jamie's sending that one. But I was looking at that one for a while, thought maybe that horse is a little bit interesting, although that horse does have a little bit more seconditis than you'd like to see out of a top pick winner normally. Looked at a couple of others in this particular spot and was really pressed to get around your morning line favorite, the number 11 Striker Has Dial for trainer Horacio De Paz, jockey Irad Ortiz Jr. Just look at who this horse has faced. This horse, first of all, wins in debut at Laurel over a muddy sealed track going 7 furlongs. Then goes a mile at Saratoga and finishes second to Ways and Means. Now, it was second by 8.5 lengths, or 8 1/4 lengths, but that's still second to a grade 1 winner, Ways and Means. Then comes back and finishes second to Miss Justify, who, oh, by the way, we saw run in the grade 1 Alabama in the Wilton Stakes. So this is a horse that's stakes placed in that regard. And then comes and finishes third last time out to St. Benedict's Press and Zadorsky over a muddy sealed track at Saratoga. St. Benedict's Press comes back to win a $62,000 optional claimer in the next start. The 4th place horse, Misenchanted, wins an N1X allowance next time out. The 5th place horse, Audacious, wins a $50,000 N1X allowance next time out. And even the last place horse comes back to win a $25,000 optional claimer on the synthetic next time out. So 4 next out winners from that last race. 2-1. If you get 2-1, a phenomenal bet. I don't think you will, but that is a horse that has just faced such superior competition. Now, if you're going to have that horse as your top selection, where you go for a little bit of value, and I really do like the number 1 Bella Queen here at 12-1. I think that's a really good price if you can get it on the morning line. The speed figures are not overwhelming, although they're not all that dissimilar to a horse like Berzina, who's 7-2 in the morning line. And this one's coming out of tougher races, running against a $75,000 optional claimer last time out, against a horse like Flogue, who is a pretty nice horse at Monmouth, who's won several races at Monmouth, in fact, and is a 7 times winner and won, I believe, 4, maybe 5 times, actually, this most recent Monmouth meet. And so that's one that's run up against some pretty good company, going back to running against $16,000 claimers, $54,000 allowance company, broke a maiden in debut impressively at Parx going 7 furlongs. So again, there's enough to like there with this horse. Again, I have to worry about breaking out of the gate, cleanly from that shoot going 7 furlongs. But this horse has some tactical speed, should be able to do that. And again, broke its maiden going 7 furlongs at Parx in debut. So like that one a lot at 12-1. That's where I'm going to be going for a little bit of value. Now let's go to race number 8, which is the Greenwood Cup, grade 3, going 1.5 miles on the dirt. And listen, it's next. And I'm not going to try to get cute here. There's been no reason for me to think next is anything but just heads and shoulders above every other horse in this division. And quite frankly, it doesn't even feel close. This is a horse that has, since starting dirt marathoning, this is a horse that has won 8 of 9 starts doing that. The only time this horse didn't win was coming back from a significant layoff where he ran third. Even Dan Cowens, the trainer, said, I messed up that day, not getting that horse maybe more cranked up. This horse can sit off the pace. This horse has great traveling speed. Luan Machado knows how to ride this horse as well as anybody. This horse earns repeatedly triple-digit buyer speed figures and has won his last 8 races by an average of 13.25 lengths. Listen, I'd love to see him run against competition at 1.25 miles, but I also, if I was the owner, it's hard to pass up just free money at this point, winning these races on big days like today in the Greenwood Cup. So next is my top pick, 1 to 5, probably going to be 1 to 9. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. The fact that there's enough horses in here actually running against him, 9 other horses, is impressive. Where am I going to go for my value play? I'll go with a horse like Di Vernon, the number 2 horse here, 10 to 1 for trainer Bill Mott. Jose Ortiz up on the mount. And yes, this horse lost by 14.75 lengths last time out to next Croupies and Drake's Passage. The race before that lost by 11.25 lengths, but notably finished second to next in that race. So back-to-back 90-plus buyer speed figure efforts has been running against stakes and grade 2 company. I think it's just worth absolutely taking a shot and maybe just doing a very straightforward 9-2 exacta if you're trying to make any sort of money on this vertically. If you're trying to beat next, good luck. I wish you the best. There's always contrarians. That's how you make money betting, is by going against the favorite. Maybe you think somebody tries to press next a little too much, but I just so hard to get around this one. Feels like a free square and move on to the next race. Well, speaking of that, let's move on to the next race, which is the Parx Dirt Mile. And we're getting back to some prices here because that's what I ultimately like doing when I'm doing this show. I like giving out some horses that are a little bit beyond just your typical morning line favorites. And my top pick in this race is another Dan Cowens horse. It could be a nice day for him. And I like the number 3 Injunction in this spot at 6 to 1 with Edgar Morales aboard. This is a horse that has it's just such an interesting form. As a dirt horse, has won some stakes races in the past and tried the turf a little bit, ran pretty well in the turf, admittedly, and was with Carlos Vacareza, then goes to Cowens. And since going to Cowens, this horse has run really, really well against solid company, won the Scheffler Memorial 2-back at Horseshoe Indy, going 2 turns and going 1.70 miles. And then last time out, this horse also putting in a strong effort, finishing second to Saudi Crown. And I thought that was impressive coming out of that 1.5 turn shoot at Ellis Park in the RA Cowboy Jones. So I thought that was a solid effort against good competition. This horse has beaten horses like Mr. Wireless and 5-Star General and Prove Worthy in most recent starts. Happy American has beaten some nice horses. And 6 to 1, you're getting an honest price. Listen, I get, people might look at Repo Rocks for sure. Coming off a win against State Bred Allowance Company, that's not exactly the overwhelming ringing endorsement from a Jamie Ness horse, but obviously this is a horse that was, a grade 1 placed horse, finishing second in the Carter last year, won the Westchester, won the Stymie, won the Toboggan, was on, quite a roll last year, went to Rick Dutro's barn for a little bit, and now is back with Ness. Maybe that horse runs a hole in the wind. We'll see. The number 5, Adero, 7 to 2 for John Service. Another one, very good horse, but still feels like a little bit of a short price. Did win the prep race for this, which is the Mayor's Mile, and got a 96 buyer over another horse, Concealed Carry, who, that horse, I just can't believe that last race. And that last race and the speed figure out of that last race actually makes me question a little bit how good Adero is as well. But it just feels like Concealed Carry maybe just ran the race of his life last time out, getting that 96 buyer, because he's had nothing that's ever been close to that. And then Coastal Mission's the other obviously strong favorite in this race. This horse hasn't won since going back to Laurel at 7 furlongs in the Frank Whiteley, and has run very well against graded stakes competition against horses like Mulligan and Bright Future and Super Chow and Skippy Longstocking, and has definitely faced some top competition. I do just wonder if this horse, is 0 for 3 at this distance, and so it's going to be interesting to see what this horse wants to do in terms of a mile. I looked a little bit at Linda Rice's Film Star, just wasn't really necessarily all the way there on that. And so ultimately my value play was the number 1 Mo Visitor for Maria Montoya with Michael Sanchez aboard. This horse's last race was so bad, it's almost not believable. And it just 21 lengths beaten. And it was actually coming out of that race that I talked about earlier with Market Maven and Irish Cork and Margin of Error. And that race was just, like I said, so bad that you just have to almost draw a line through it, because the other races this horse has been running all fit in this spot. This horse almost won the Battery Park Stakes. This horse finished third to Bright Future and Coastal Mission in a very close finish in the Salvatore Mile at 21-1. This horse won a really nice optional claiming 50 race before that at Parx, going a mile and a 16th. So I don't know what happened in that Storm Cat. And watching the tape doesn't really show you much. This horse has good speed. And if this horse can run back to any of those 3 previous efforts, certainly is going to outrun his odds at 8-1. So a horse that maybe is getting a little bit overlooked and working nicely coming into this race, firing off a 47-3 4 furlong work last week. So again, willing to take a shot with this one at a little bit of a price. Now let's go to the Turf Monster. And again, going to try to go against the favorite here, find a way to make a little bit of money in this sequence. Obviously, your favorite is the number 3 Super Quest at 5-2 for trainer Mark Cassie, jockey Jose Ortiz. This one's coming off a 3rd place effort, very close 3rd place effort in the Harvey Pack. 2 Big Invasion and Our Shot, but beat Our Shot the race before that while getting Lasix in $80,000 optional claiming company. And, it's a really nice horse, has never missed the board. If you're playing vertically, obviously you have to include this horse, I think. I do wonder if this horse gets into a little bit of a speed duel with a horse like Jean Valjean, the number 4 horse in this race for Elizabeth Merriman. And so as a result, I went to the number 6 Allegon, a horse that won the Parx Dash, sitting the trip that I think he'll sit on Saturday, which is sitting just behind the pace and then making a move. Earned a 95 buyer speed figure, has some races that are very similar that he could run back to in that space. Almost beat No Balls last year in that DeHaas down at Colonial and ran a 99 buyer speed figure that day. I actually like this horse at 5 furlongs, maybe a little bit more than I like this horse at 5.5 or 6. So I think for Edward Allard, really like this one at a little bit of a price. Another price you could consider is the number 7 4 Harp, 10-1 for trainer Butch Reed with Jose Lescano aboard. I like this one. This one came back this year and was running really well, I thought, and ran 3rd in an optional claimer off the bench, off a little bit of a layoff, and then really took a nice step forward, ran 3rd again in an optional claimer, but to some nice horses, Surveillance and Running with Scissors, and ultimately was placed 2nd due to disqualification, was on the lead that day, and then comes back to run in a stakes race at Parx that gets rained off and run on the dirt. And the horse just does not run particularly well. Finished 4th behind Smooth Bee and Trader's Luck and one other. This horse has good speed, doesn't necessarily need the lead, and has kind of done some work from off the pace in the past, but generally does do its best work up front. I wonder if this one again for Butch Reed kind of goes out with Jose Lescano aboard, always going to be aggressive, 10-1. Maybe this one can get out there and wire the field, has some big races to run back to. So again, there's some things there to like in this horse's past. I wonder if this horse was sitting on a big effort last time in Parx, that would have been 3rd back from a little bit of a form cycle. And I wonder if you're going to get that sort of an effort from that horse on Saturday. So 10-1, I think is pretty interesting for that runner. Now let's go to the Gallant Bob, which is grade 2, going 6 furlongs on the dirt. And listen, The horse to beat in this race is the number 1, Ben Tornado. 9-5 in the morning line for trainer Jose D'Angelo. If anybody wants to pick that horse, I'm not going to talk him off it. Okay, you got Irad Ortiz Jr. aboard. This horse went overseas, ran in the Saudi Derby, finished third to Forever Young and Bookham Dano. That's not bad, right? That's a pretty good company. Prior to that, this horse was running through restricted Florida bred competition down at Gulfstream Park. Won in debut, stepped up, won the Proud Man actually against Open Company, then wins 2 more stakes races against Florida breds, tries to go 2 turns, runs a decent third that day to Seminole Chief and Secret Lover, but ultimately finishes third, then goes and does that 1-turn mile over in the Saudi Derby, finishes third, like I said, to 2 phenomenal horses, Forever Young, who almost won the Kentucky Derby, Bookham Dano, who wins the Grade 1 Woody Stevens, then comes back and runs second to Valentine Candy at Chucktown on the Charlestown Classic undercard, earns a 99 Beyer speed figure, a career best. It's important to point out that 7 furlong race at Charlestown is a 2-turn race that could have some affect over why this horse maybe didn't quite run as well. It certainly, like I said, makes all the sense in the world. I'm going to use the number 3, Bucciarino. This horse is coming off a win last time out in essentially the local prep at Parx over Maximus Meridius and Sunny Breeze. The 93 Beyer speed figure, is it real? Is it going to need to run back? We'll see. Jose Lezcano up on the mount, 4-1. It's a little bit of a price. This horse has good speed and can rate a little bit, but is probably going to try to get out there on the front end. I think has the best speed of the group. It certainly is firing off nice workouts leading up to this, in particular 59-1, 5 furlong bullet work on September 14th. So some things to like there from this horse, who I think, again, a pretty honest runner, 7 for 9 in his career, in the money, 4 for 9 winning. And, again, stakes winner last time out. Is this a little too much? Maybe, but I think this horse is at least moving the right direction. The other horse that I'm interested in is my value play here. Number 4, Sunny Breeze, who I mentioned lost to Bucciarino and Maximus Meridius last time out, going 6.5. But here's the thing. And this horse absolutely faded in that race, disappointed at a relatively short price, was 7-2 that day. Thing is, the race before that, this horse is a stakes winner at Laurel, going 7 furlongs off Lasix. So this horse answered a Lasix question, is a stakes winner, and can handle a longer distance. So there's some things to like here with a horse that also can rate, can sit second, and I think, again, there's enough to like there to suggest maybe this horse bounces back in a big way from that poor effort last time out, and you're getting 8-1 on the morning line. I think that's not a bad value play at all in this particular spot. Well, let's head to the Grade 1 Cotillion, a pair of Grade 1 races, obviously. Want to give a shout out to my good friend Jessica Paquette, who made history last year as the first female race caller to call a Grade 1 race. And it was this Cotillion last year with Ceiling Crusher getting the win that day. And she's going to be doing it again. She's going to do a great job, as she always does. And so happy to see this field and the fact that they actually got some horses to run against Thorpedo Anna. And ultimately, that's where I went with my top selection. A couple of reasons why. And I understand there are people probably screaming at the screen right now going, she's going to bounce. She's going to bounce. Maybe. I don't think she is. I think Beyer is a little bit biased in terms of speed figures. I think filly and mare numbers tend to be, in my opinion, a little bit lower than they probably should be across the board. So I always thought her numbers were a little bit artificially inflated lower than they actually were. And when she ran that 111 Beyer against the boys, I didn't think it was that shocking that she ran that well against them. And, it's interesting. She ran, she increased 21 points on Beyer. Or she increased, I should say, 12 points on Beyer from her personal best. She increased about the same from her personal best on Timeform US. So if you look at the numbers, she definitely moved forward. I would also say this about it. It was the first time she was really asked to win a race the way that she was. And in other words, she was being asked for about 90 to 95% in her other races. And in the Travers, we saw her be asked for 100%. And we saw what she can do. The other thing is, all you have to do is look at her. She doesn't look like she's going to bounce. She has come back physically looking great coming out of that Travers and has been training well for trainer Kenny McPeak coming out of that Travers. There's nothing in my mind that tells me she's going to bounce in this effort. She has the tactical ability to sit whatever trip she needs to sit. Remember last time she was sitting third, she can sit second. She's gone up against the boys. She almost beat Fierceness when nobody's gotten close to beating Fierceness, even on his best day, the way that she did. And again, I just think she's so hard to get around in this spot. She's really not faced any peer that's her equal in the 3-year-old filly division. So going to be my top selection here. A horse that I like is Scalable at a big price at 10-1. Now, Scalable has one speed figure, which is always a little concerning, and is an 89 from the last time out for trainer Todd Pletcher with Paco Lopez aboard. What impressed me about this horse that day was this horse went wide behind a slow pace, going 2 turns at Monmouth. That's not exactly a winning recipe a lot of times. They want 113 and change to the 6 furlong mark. This horse makes a move, goes wide, tracks down Gunsong, and wins. And I just thought it was a really impressive effort for a horse that I'd always been a little bit interested in, going back to the Forward Gal and the Gulfstream Park Oaks, where she was really no competition. But it feels like something's kind of clicked maybe, and maybe it was just the level of competition. Obviously she's lost significantly to a horse like Power Squeeze before when they went up against each other in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. But she showed enough speed in that last race that I think she can sit more of a mid-pack trip in a way that Power Squeeze, I think, is going to be coming from a little further back. I just think that this course kind of fits Scalable pretty well. Paco aboard. And at 10-1, I think you're getting a really nice price on a horse like that. I know a lot of people like Gunsong as well from Mark Hennig with Johnny Velasquez aboard. Certainly a horse that you have to consider if this horse just kind of tries to gun it, get to the front. Johnny V, always dangerous up on the front end. The other horse that I'll mention, who I'm not sure what value you're actually going to get on her, which is why I didn't include her in this graphic, is number 3, Tarifa, who I actually think is going to go off as your second choice. This is a horse that was the 5-1, I think, third choice, if I'm not mistaken, behind Just FYI and Thorpedo Anna in that Kentucky Oaks, and had run through the fairground circuit. Won the Rachel Alexandra, won the Fairground Oaks, and was kind of, that's always a very impressive circuit to win. Godolphin owned and bred, Brad Cox, Flavian Pratt aboard. Pratt rode this horse to her 2 victories down there at Fairgrounds. Last time out, 7 furlongs, Florent Giroux aboard. They went maybe a little fast up front. She was kind of contesting that pace. And ultimately, a horse like Fibber came from off the pace. I thought got the better trip. That was also her first race after the Kentucky Oaks in a 3-month layoff. So willing to kind of give her one there. I think Tarifa is a little bit dangerous in this spot. And if anybody's going to be able to beat Thorpedo Anna, I think it's probably her in all likelihood. So going to be interesting to see that race and how it plays out. Well, let's head to the headliner, which is the Pennsylvania Derby Grade 1, going 1 1/8 miles on the dirt. And I'm going to give out a horse as my top selection who is not going to be 8-1 on the morning line. He's not 8-1 on the morning line. He's not going to be 8-1 come post time. And that is Unmatched Wisdom for trainer Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt. This horse is going to be 7-2, 3-1. This horse could be your favorite come post time. I mean, really. The 8-1 morning line, notwithstanding, really like this horse a lot. Why? First 3 races of this horse's career are spectacular, pristine. 3 for 3, runs a 98, 93, 99 buyer. Now you might come back and go, well, who do you really beat? That's fair enough. He beat Corporate Power. He beat a horse like Time Out, who I'm going to get to in a second, in that Curlin. Then goes and runs in the Travers and finishes second to last, beaten by almost 20 lengths. And you go, well, what happened in that race? Well, he was running against Fierceness, Thorpedo Anna, Sierra Leone, Dornick. He's running against much better horses than what he's facing on Saturday. The other thing is he just didn't get the trip. And this is a horse that likes to be near the pace. And I think this horse, but has shown the ability to sit second a little bit and be patient. I think this horse just gets the right trip on Saturday. And I think this horse can sit just off the pace. Flavien Prat back aboard after riding Sierra Leone in that Travers. Now comes back to Unmatched Wisdom here for Chad Brown. And if you remember in the Travers, this horse just didn't get to its spot, was sitting mid-pack and was really not happy about it. I mean, you could tell the horse was bothered, was throwing its head a little bit, was being difficult for jockey Irad Ortiz Jr. that day, was carrying a little bit more weight than he normally carries as well, back down to 122 now. So I just think there's plenty of reasons to think this horse is going to bounce back from that bad effort in the Travers. The other thing is Chad Brown. What does Chad Brown do after that Travers? Does he drop him down in class? No, he comes right back in a 2-turn grade 1. So we're not going a mile and a quarter. We're going back to a mile and an eighth. I think you got the right distance, the right setup. I like this horse a lot. I'm absolutely playing against Dragoon Guard. Dragoon Guard to me feels like Arthur's Ride. And what I mean by that is he feels like a horse that has gotten some easy leads and has been able to carve out the fractions he wants to carve out and is going to be pressed in a way that I don't think he's ever been pressed before on Saturday. And also from a speed figure standpoint, 3 straight 91 buyers. It's not overwhelming. And 2 of those last 3 wins came with Lasix, including in the West Virginia Derby. He did win the Indiana Derby without Lasix, going a mile and a 16th. He beat Stronghold, admittedly, who I'll get to in a second. But otherwise, he beat horses like Dymatic, Society Man, and Informed Patriot. I mean, this is not an overwhelming group. Now, you could say, Matthew, the group on Saturday is not overwhelming, and I wouldn't disagree with you. But I just think he's going to face more pace pressure in a way that we saw Arthur's Ride face more pace pressure in that Jockey Club Gold Cup, and he faded a little bit. So what do you do with Stronghold? I'm tossing Stronghold 5-2 on the morning line. I hate the post position, post 11. I do think he has the right running style, at least for this race, sitting off the pace a little bit. I do wonder if he's fast enough. Best career speed figure was a 90 in the Sunland Park Derby. That was always kind of a knock on him. Is he was a nice horse, but he always needs to get a little faster. I'm going to be kind of tossing him. I think Seize the Gray is sitting on a big race, potentially, for trainer D. Wayne Lucas. And this one's coming off from a little bit of a layoff, which is about 2 months without running for trainer D. Wayne, who runs him regularly. So notable when this horse gets a little bit of time off. The last 2 times weren't great. I think you could say, listen, he didn't want a mile and a quarter in the Belmont. And he also was at the end of a really arduous road where he ran, if I'm not mistaken, 5 times in a matter of 9 weeks. Basically from March 23rd to June 8th, he ran 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And I just thought it was a little bit of a cumulative effort. And then in the Jim Dandy, he just didn't get his spot. He sat mid-pack and sat further back. That's not what he does. When he sits that far back, he's not going to make a run. So you got to get him up on the lead. And I think that's exactly what Torres is going to do from the inside post position. He's going to be up there on the lead. Can he replicate the Preakness? I don't know if he can do that, but I think at 5-1, he's sitting on a nice effort. Now, where am I going for value? I think you're actually going to find value in the number 4 timeout for trainer Bill Mott. I mentioned some speed. Obviously, Seize the Gray, Dragoon Guard, Unmatched Wisdom. I think a horse like Just Step on It, even a horse like Lonesome Boy. All these horses are going to want to be forward. Timeout could get the right trip. This horse likes to sit off the pace and make up a lot of ground late. And sired by Curlin, out of a Warfront dam, should want all the distance he could possibly desire. Ran 3rd to Unmatched Wisdom and Corporate Power in that Curlin Stakes. Gave up a lot of ground that day, was wide, was still making up ground late, though. Gets Joel Rosario aboard and keeps Joel Rosario aboard. I think this one's interesting. Last time out, finished second against Allowance Company. That was a bizarrely run race, though. If you remember, that's the race, the 3rd place horse, Rocketeer, jockeyed by Tyler Gaffleone that day, just like sprinted clear on the backstretch by like 6 lengths. And it was just kind of an oddly run race. And Gabe Morton, who was your winner, kind of got the jump a little bit on timeout, who was more kind of grinding away. I think this horse at 10-1, I'll be honest, I'm using this horse on all of my horizontal tickets. I'm using the 8, the 2, and the 4. That's how I'm playing this race in the horizontal sequence. I'm tossing Dragoon Guard. I'm tossing Stronghold. I'm just playing those 3. So I think timeout's pretty dangerous in this spot. Could be sitting on an absolutely huge effort. Well, let's close things out with the Parx Sprint Stakes going 6 furlongs on the dirt, and I should say 6.5 furlongs. I apologize for the typo. 6.5 furlongs on the dirt. And for this one, I go to two horses coming out of the same race. My Buddy B at 6-1 and Recruiter at 6-1. They finished a length and a half apart from each other. So it'll be interesting to see how the betting public takes this one. But I really like My Buddy B quite a bit at 6-1. This is for Krista Hetrick, who is not of overwhelming connection in terms of big name recognition, but wins 26% of the time. Yana Villas aboard, who won with this horse last time out in the state representative stakes, and going 6.5 at Parx. Horse got up on the lead, one gate to wire. This horse can rate, though, as one doing that. You look at this horse's dirt form, there's a lot of good races. Quite frankly, it's just an honest horse who likes to win. 9 for 19 winning all time. 6 for 9 winning over a dry, fast track. And again, just really hard to knock this horse's form. Now, you could say he's never faced this good a company, but that's not even true because this horse ran 2 back in the Alfred G. Vanderbilt against Nakatomi, Skelly, and Twisted Ride and finished 5th that day. So, I know Twisted Ride's in this race and could certainly be sitting on a big effort. But to me, Twisted Ride kind of ran the race of his life maybe in that Alfred G. Vanderbilt, regressed next time out in the Forgo. It will be interesting to see how he runs here at 5-1. I really like My Buddy B quite a bit in this race at 6-1. And then I like Recruiter as well, who came out of that same race, finishing second that day. Another horse that likes to win, 6 for 13 lifetime, 3 for 8 winning over a dry, fast track, 3 for 4 winning over a wet track. But I thought this horse looked good with Paco Lopez aboard. Now picks up Jaime Rodriguez and for Cathal Lynch. This horse, again, has run kind of back-to-back 93 buyers. I think has a little bit of versatility, kind of sits a little off the pace, can track a little bit. So I think this one has that sort of versatility. And I think it's just kind of a nice horse to use. I'll be interested, again, to see how this one plays out. Sired by Army Mule. I always like those Army Mules quite a bit out of the Medaglia d'Oro Dam. So plenty to like from a pedigree standpoint. I am going to be playing against Super Chow. Part of it is Super Chow. Once you get past 6 furlongs, I'm always a little bit curious. I know, the horse fan third in the Carter, but and won the toboggan going 7, although I think that was under kind of ideal conditions that day that I don't think Super Chow is going to necessarily get. You do get Irad Ortiz Jr. aboard, always dangerous, but I'm willing to play against Super Chow at 7-2 in this spot. And so, like I said, really like My Buddy B quite a bit at 6-1. All right. Well, listen, we did it, folks. In under an hour, we got through 14 races. So that alone should earn a like and a subscribe here to NYRA Bets YouTube. Listen, I'm going to be down at Parx on Saturday with my colleague Kaylee Shapiro. You're also going to have Maggie Wolfendale, Lafitte Pinkai down there covering the races for America's Day at the Races. So make sure to tune in. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to see everybody out there at the track. Always love going to the Pennsylvania Derby every year, even before I started coming up here to work for NYRA Bets. Always liked going to the PA Derby. So going to be a fun day. Make sure to like and subscribe. Good luck if you're playing. Make sure to check out all of the great promos we have up on NYRA Bets. And don't forget to play Belmont at the Big A as well. Listen, want to wish you a great and profitable day at the races. And remind you, friends, it's now post time.